Hey guys, tonight we journey far back, no farther than that, past pyramids, past Mesopotamia, into the windswept Ice Age, where the only heat comes from flickering firelight, and the only soundtrack is the crackle of pine logs and the distant howl of wolves. You duck beneath a low stone overhang, nostrils stinging with smoke. There, in the orange glow, are people, not quite like you, but close, heavy-browed, wide-chested, wrapped in fur and muscle. Welcome to a Neanderthal cave. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is dense and woody, filled with the musky smell of damp earth, cooked marrow, and old ash. The cave entrance narrows just enough to keep out the worst of the wind, and the Neanderthals have taken advantage of that, arranging their lives around a circle of fire. You watch as one of them stirs the embers with a charred stick. She grunts low, in her throat, not in irritation, but in rhythm. A child mimics her, smiling with smoke-reddened eyes. They are shorter than you expect, most under 5.5 feet, but they are solid. You would not win a tug of war against a Neanderthal toddler. Let's put it that way. Their limbs are thick, built not just for endurance, but for power. Imagine carrying an entire deer across an ice field with no sled. That's a Tuesday for them. You sit on a stone near the edge of the group. No one acknowledges you, but you're not unwelcome. They're too busy doing what prehistoric people do, making mending, preparing, surviving. One elder squats with a remarkable patience as she scrapes dried hide, her stone flake, moving with a rhythm so practiced it seems meditative. Another hums while using sinew to lash what looks like a spearhead to a wooden shaft. Even in this dim cave, there's something oddly cozy about it all, like stumbling into a rustic family reunion you were never invited to, but are somehow allowed to stay. It's not a quiet place. There are coughs, clacks, the occasional sharp yelp when a flake draws blood. A pair of brothers, your best guess from their similar faces, argue over a fire pit design. One wants more stones around the edge. The other insists the slope will drain the rainwater better. Their gestures are large, expressive. There's no written language, not even symbolic drawings here yet, but you can read their frustration as easily as any modern couple building IKEA furniture. In the corner, you spot something strange, a cache of objects that don't seem useful, a polished bone with carved notches, a handful of red ochre lumps, a shell with a hole through it. Trinkets, toys, offerings. Historians still argue whether these were decorative, ritualistic, or just Neanderthal fidget spinners. The point is, they kept them. Above your head, faint soot lines streak across the ceiling. They're not accidental. Someone once traced their fingers through ash and then reached up, pressing their hand to the stone again and again. Not for warmth, not for survival, just because. And in that gesture, something tugs at your gut, a recognition that someone 40,000 years ago wanted to be remembered. Outside, a bitter wind kicks up, scattering dry leaves across the icy grasslands. Inside, a baby whines, and an auntie probably presses the child to her chest, bouncing gently. No bottles, no diapers, no parenting books. Just warm, flesh-shared heat and 1,000 generations of instinct. The fire dims. One of the hunters reaches into a sack of damp moss and feeds it into the coals. The flames gutter, then bloom again. You realize these people have tamed an element that still intimidates us. No lighters, no matches, just stone, spark, and patience. And yet, in this darkness, their control of fire is the difference between thriving and freezing. Someone yawns. A long, slow exhale through wide nostrils. The rest of the group begins to settle. No formal bedtime here, no electric clocks, just circadian rhythm and the pull of rest. You lay back on a bearskin rug. Well, you imagine you do, and feel the warmth of the fire reaching out like a comforting hand. You won't survive this world, of course. You know that. The food would wreck your stomach. The microbes would throw a party in your bloodstream. But for now, as the embers pulse and the cave breathes with sleeping bodies, you're allowed to rest. Just for tonight. You wake, or rather you become aware, to the sound of footsteps crunching softly on the cave floor. It's still dark outside. A faint blue has begun to tint the mouth of the cave, but inside the only light is the warm sigh of fire coals. A young Neanderthal is up early, flexing his hands and rotating his shoulders in long, slow arcs. Watching him move is like watching a machine built for uneven terrain, sturdy, balanced, and slightly overbuilt for the job. Neanderthals were not just strong, they were built for extremes. Shorter limbs minimized heat loss, wider chests stored more oxygen, and their powerful grip strength might have shamed a modern climber. Their skeletons suggest they regularly experienced and recovered from traumatic injuries that would put most of us out of commission for months. You broke your rib chasing a mammoth fine. Walk it off. Dinner's not going to hunt itself. Their skulls are a masterpiece of Ice Age engineering, heavy brows, large noses, sloped foreheads. Some of this was adaptation bigger. Nasal cavities helped warm cold air before it hit the lungs. But the brain case. That's where things get really interesting. The average Neanderthal brain was actually larger than a modern human's. Now, before you puff up on their behalf, know this size isn't everything. Brain shape matters too. Neanderthal brains were likely structured differently, with more emphasis on vision and body control. Less social cognition, perhaps, but better memory of terrain. Better spatial awareness. Better ability to mentally rotate objects, which helps if you're deciding whether a flint flake will do the job, or slice your thumb open. Still, historians still argue whether Neanderthals had lower cognition, or just different cognition. Were they less imaginative? Or did they just imagine different things? Modern neuroscience can only squint at fossilized impressions and guess. But you tonight get to watch a living example in motion. The young man pulls out a flint core and begins working it over with a hammerstone. Sparks fly. The blows are precise, controlled. He's not just smashing rock. He's thinking in 3 dimensions, visualizing the flakes before they fall. This is Levallois technique, a refined multi-step process of shaping tools that predates your smartphone by about 300,000 years. Nearby, 2 women are tracing hunting routes into the dirt with sticks. Not random scrawls. This is memory in action. They're visualizing hills, water sources, migration patterns. And yes, they're planning. Neanderthals weren't the lone wolf savages of outdated textbooks. They were social, cooperative, possibly even democratic in certain decisions, though. Let's be honest, it was probably still the guy with the mammoth tusk necklace who got the last word. Your foot itches, and you realize why you're not wearing boots. Neanderthals didn't have them either, not in the modern sense, but they were no strangers to foot protection. Evidence from cave sites suggests they used hide wrappings, fur inserts, and sinew bindings to fashion rudimentary but effective shoes. And their feet, broad, flat, perfectly calibrated for uneven stone and ice. You feel like a penguin trying to walk on marbles. As morning unfolds, the cave comes alive again. One woman begins braiding strips of animal gut, cordage, for tools for carrying slings, for binding bones into frames. This, historians admit, is the kind of intelligence that doesn't fossilize well. Tying knots, weaving baskets, balancing calories against energy expenditure. It's not flashy, but it's survival. And it's arguably more useful than being able to name every constellation. You hear a child babbling nearby. The sounds aren't random. There's rhythm, repetition, pauses that suggest turn-taking. Could it be language? Most experts believe Neanderthals had some form of spoken communication, even if it didn't involve complex grammar. The FOXP2 Q gene, the one linked to speech in modern humans, was present in them too. Their hyoid bones, those tiny U-shaped bones that help anchor tongue muscles, suggest they could speak. So why do people assume they just grunted? Probably because they didn't leave behind books, poems, or TikToks. But consider this: would you write poetry if you were busy dodging cave bears and preventing frostbite? Instead, you'd make sure your group knew where the food was, when the storm was coming, who had fire, who had shelter. And for that, their proto-language was more than enough. One elder begins humming again, a low nasal tone drawn out and rising at the end. It's not a song in the modern sense, but maybe it is. Maybe that's how stories started. Not as lyrics, but as rhythm. Memory attached to sound. A lullaby, a warning, a shared joke. These echoes might have been the first bedtime stories. Outside, the light brightens, casting sharp shadows over the frost-crusted grass. The group begins to stir, gather tools, prepare for whatever's next. You linger a moment longer, taking in the scene, a people so close to you. It's uncanny, yet so far, that we almost forgot them entirely. But they weren't beasts. They were builders, rememberers, fire makers. They were human, just not your kind of human. And they were extraordinary. You follow them out into the morning frost, your breath fogging in the chill air. The group fans out across a gently sloping plain speckled with rocks and the last patches of dirty snow. One man carries a stone bundle wrapped in hide. Another has a deer pelvis hanging from his belt, glistening with grease. But your eyes catch on the woman cradling something precious in both hands, a flat stone slab and a small piece of iron pyrite. She's the fire maker. Fire didn't fall from the sky for Neanderthals. It didn't wait conveniently in a Zippo or pop out from gas ovens. It had to be made from scratch, using skill that could take years to master. And while we may think of it as primitive fire making was a craft, almost a form of magic that only a few could master, The group finds a windbreak and a dip near some scrubby trees. The firemaker crouches, sets down her slab, and pulls out dried grass and a crumbling mess of bark that looks like a wasp nest. This is tinder fungus, a secret weapon of prehistoric pyrotechnics. She scrapes at it with her thumbnail, fluffing it into a nest. You lean in entranced, then a sharp strike. Flint against pyrite. Again. Sparks dance in the sunlight. Most die mid-air, but one finds purchase. The ember doesn't roar, it smolders. A single orange thread glowing within the fungus. She breathes on it gently, feeding it with warmth and patience, not air, like coaxing a secret out of someone shy. The nest is fed into dry grass, a curl of smoke, then a flicker, then a whoomph. You almost clap, but no one else reacts. This is not applause-worthy to them. It's routine, like brushing your teeth. Fire is life, but more importantly, it's habit. They use it for everything. Cooking, yes, but also for warmth, for safety from predators, for shaping tools. Heat-treating flint makes it more workable. Neanderthals figured that out before Homo sapiens even entered Europe. Historians still argue whether they discovered it accidentally, perhaps by dropping a rock near the hearth, or whether they observed, remembered, and repeated. Either way, you're watching innovation in action. With the fire stable, the group relaxes slightly. A man sharpens a spear point, rotating it against a rock, as if he's done this 1,000 times, and he has. Children collect twigs, laughing when one snaps too loudly. One woman boils something pungent in a hide pouch full of water and rocks. You realize they're cooking using hot stones. No pots needed, just heat, hide, and patience. Fire also draws others. Birds curious, a red fox at the edge of the trees, but also threats. Wolves, bears, possibly even other bands of humans. Neanderthals used fire as a signal. Both were here and don't come closer. It's a beacon and a boundary. You notice that they carry embers when they move camp. Not fire, not flame embers. Glowing bits of charcoal wrapped in damp moss or placed in hollowed-out bone. Like carrying the sun in your pocket. Modern campers envy that trick. Try lighting a fire in sleet with just 2 rocks and a soggy attitude. One elder taps a younger man on the shoulder and gestures toward the west. Smoke, not theirs. Another fire, faint on the horizon. Is it another Neanderthal group, Homo sapiens? Hard to say. But everyone goes quiet for a moment. Fire isn't just a tool, it's a message. The group consults in low, guttural sounds. A decision is made. They'll stay for now, but keep a watch. One man walks the perimeter, rubbing ochre on his hands like war paint. It's not aggression, it's caution. You sit down, near the fire, close enough to feel the radiant heat, but not close enough to get in the way. The ground is frozen beneath you, but the heat reaches your bones. The smoke smells like pine sap and last night's roast lizard or something like it. Not unpleasant, just real. A child brings over a small torch, really just a stick dipped in animal fat and lit on one end. He waves it proudly. The group chuckles, not unkindly. You watch as he runs toward the dark edge of the trees, painting the shadows with flickering light. It's like watching a myth unfold, Prometheus in training. Suddenly, A loud snap from the woods. Everyone freezes, spears ready, firelight held high. You tense too, though what you do with your phone and sneakers here is anyone's guess. Then a deer, alone, startled by scent, not sound. It bolts, and everyone exhales. The torch is lowered. Calm returns. One woman grabs a charred stick and begins to draw in the dirt. A deer, a handprint, a series of dots. You recognize the beginnings of communication, not words but marks. This too was made possible by fire. It blackens wood into charcoal, turns bone into pigment. You've just witnessed the seed of writing, the spark of story. The fire dies down again. More moss, more tinder. Another ember carried in. They'll do this a dozen times today, maybe more. Each moment they recreate fire, they recreate civilization, over and over again, one spark at a time. And you realize something. These weren't just people who had fire. They were people who understood it, controlled it, respected it. They weren't cavemen staring blankly at flames. They were technicians of combustion. Fire was their sixth sense. And in this frozen, unforgiving world, it may have been the closest thing to magic they had. You trail behind the hunting party, now your boots sinking slightly into the frost-bitten loam. But no one else seems bothered. The Neanderthal hunters move with a kind of silent unity, like a murmuration of birds. If birds were 5'5", 200 pounds of pure muscle, and smelled like dried blood and old fur. Today's target, a woolly rhinoceros. Not a metaphor. An actual woolly rhinoceros, 2 tons of tusked timber, with a coat that makes shag carpets look underdressed. They've tracked it for hours already using signs you can't even see. A broken twig, scuffed lichen, a dung pile steaming gently in the morning air. One of the lead hunters' broad-nosed, one eye slightly swollen from an old injury drops to his haunches and sniffs the wind. Then he gestures, downwind careful now, no sudden movements, spears low. Your heart pounds just watching. The terrain is not forgiving uneven scrubland, slick rocks, patches of lingering snow. But Neanderthal feet, thick and wide grip like crampons. You slip at least twice just trying to keep up. One hunter snorts in amusement. You suspect your awkwardness is now a story they'll tell later. They fan out slowly, surrounding the rhino's likely path. No panic, no yelling. Just glances, gestures, the subtle dance of a well-oiled hunting unit. Then you see it, huge, grazing. Its horn gleams faintly under the winter sun. You want to back away, run, hide. But the Neanderthals move closer. There's a moment of frozen time, and then the world erupts. A yell, not from panic, but strategy, sends the beast charging in the wrong direction, straight toward a narrow funnel between 2 limestone boulders. The hunters pounce from either side, spears raised. One gets knocked back, rolling in the mud. Another lodges his weapon in the rhino's side. The scream, yes, scream from the creature is deep and guttural. It shakes your bones. But then it falters. Knees give, collapse. It's over. The silence that follows is immense. They don't cheer. They don't high-five. They get to work, first checking for danger. Another rhino, no. Good. Then they begin to process the body. You'd think a 2-ton corpse would be hard to manage, but they've done this before. It's like watching a pit crew at work, only with flint knives and frozen sinew. They strip the hide in long, practiced motions. The fat is saved in stone bowls. The meat is carved and packed in grass-lined wraps. Even the bones are sorted for tools, for marrow, for future carving. You notice a woman arrive with younger helpers. She wasn't at the kill site, but knew where to go. How maybe scent, maybe sound, maybe just the communal rhythm of people who live and breathe together in survival. One helper begins chewing on sinew, not for snacking, but to soften it for rope. Another scrapes the rhino's horn, perhaps to use as a pigment base. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals used such materials for symbolic art medicinal paste or just effective glue. You stand back overwhelmed. Every part of the beast is useful. There is no waste. The stomach will be used to store water. The intestines will become cord. The blood, mixed with ochre to create paint. This is not a brutish hack job. It's resource management. Someone offers you a slice of something. It's dark red, still steaming. You hesitate. They insist. You chew. It's not bad. A bit chewy, gamey, slightly metallic, but nourishing. The warmth spreads through your cold body, and you realize this is what survival tastes like: pure, unprocessed protein shared without ceremony. Later, the hunters rest under a rocky overhang, chewing in silence. There's no talk of glory, no ritual boasting, just satisfaction. The kind of contentment only earned when your entire day's effort ends in dinner and warmth. One man sharpens his spear again, not because he needs to right now, but because tomorrow will come, and with it, another hunt. This culture isn't just reactive, it's proactive. They learn, they plan, they anticipate. Near your side, a child arranges bones in a circle, playing, training, or perhaps both. You remember how play in children mimics adult work. For Neanderthal kids, the line between toy and tool is probably non-existent. A light snow begins to fall. The group starts to pack up, not hurried, just steady. Skins are rolled. Meat is bundled. A warm sack of rendered fat is slung over someone's back. This will feed the group for days unless scavengers get to it. You glance back at the kill site. What's left looks almost surgical. A few blood spatters. A deep red patch where the snow is melting. A bird has already landed pecking at the scraps. And just like that, the Neanderthals are on the move again. You hurry to keep up, warmed from the meal, grounded by the violence and grace of it all. The lesson lingers in your chest, like the meat still digesting. They weren't just strong, they were strategic. They didn't survive in spite of the wild, they thrived in the middle of it. Back at the camp, the smell hits you before you even enter the clearing. Smoke-wet leather and something surprisingly herbal. A woman is boiling pine needles in a hide pouch, and the scent cuts through the cold like a forest in spring. She's not brewing tea for taste, though it might be oddly pleasant, but for health. Pine needles mean vitamin C, scurvy prevention. These folks knew things. Around her, the post-hunt industry is in full swing. And while the men's hunt was impressive, this is the unsung miracle of survival, turning raw materials into gear. Skins are stretched on wooden frames. Others are being scraped with flint tools to remove fat and membrane. It's laborious, rhythmic, and surprisingly social. Someone hums. Another answers with a whistle. You crouch beside a teenage girl as she works sinew between her teeth, softening it with saliva and gentle chewing. She doesn't look up, but she shifts slightly so you can see her hands better. She's threading the sinew through two overlapping pieces of hide, binding them into a makeshift mitt. Neanderthal clothing wasn't stitched with metal needles. They didn't have them. But they used awls and bone needles with eyelets. Some were shockingly thin. Archaeologists once dismissed these as Homo sapiens inventions, but new finds suggest Neanderthals had them first, or at least simultaneously. She shows you a completed piece, a wide mitt, more like a fur bag than a glove, with a thumb space and thick stitching. It's waterproof, wind-resistant. You'd buy it for $100 from a Scandinavian startup. Over by the fire, an elder is twisting thin strands of gut into cord. His fingers are thick, cracked, and steady. He's making rope, not for climbing, but for binding bundles, lashing sled frames, maybe even for early snowshoes. They didn't invent the wheel, but they sure understood friction. A child toddles by, wearing a miniature cape of rabbit pelts tied at the chest with a looped vine. He looks like a tiny wizard. You fight the urge to laugh until you notice his feet. Fur wrapped tightly bound with twisted grass and utterly silent on the cold ground. They didn't dress for fashion. They dressed for function. But that doesn't mean there wasn't artistry. Some hides are dyed with ochre. Others are burnished with animal fat to give them a soft sheen. One woman proudly displays a necklace strung with carved bone discs and what looks like fossilized shell. Historians still argue whether such accessories were mere decoration or held meaning status kinship magic. But the care in their creation suggests purpose. You don't spend hours threading beads just to look nice. You do it to belong. Nearby, you spot something strange. Two men pulling sinew taut between two antlers, a frame, a rack. No, something else. One is weaving in strips of hide overlapping in a deliberate pattern. It takes a moment to recognize a carrier. Not a backpack as you know it, but a load sledge meant to drag over snow. They understood leverage, distribution, geometry. The evening comes fast. Light fades early in Ice Age winters. The group gathers near the fire again, many wrapped in fresh garments that still steam faintly from drying. They pass around warmed marrow bones and strips of cured meat. And you sit quietly draped in a spare pelt someone handed you earlier. It smells faintly of goat, or deer, or possibly both. You're warmer than you've been in hours. One woman gestures to your arm, then to your exposed wrist. You get the message? She rummages in a woven pouch and produces a thin strip of hide, still damp but flexible. With deft fingers, she wraps it around your wrist, knots it, and gives it a tug. It tightens just enough to stop heat loss. Her smile is toothy and proud. It's a bracelet. It's a tourniquet. It's both. Function first, flair second. And you feel oddly honored. As darkness deepens, someone tosses a few scraps to the fire. It flares briefly, illuminating a wall at the back of the cave. You notice patterns, not paintings, not quite, but markings. Scrapes, grooves. A row of dots arranged in what seems like counting. Tally marks maybe. Maybe a lunar calendar. Historians don't agree, but they are deliberate. You trace one with your finger. It feels smooth, old, intentionally placed, like the cave was their closet, their diary, their hard drive. Outside, the wind picks up, making the fire crackle harder. You feel the pelt shift on your shoulders and tighten it instinctively. No zippers, no Velcro, just hide and twine, and yet you're warm. That's the point, really. Neanderthals didn't invent the future. They optimized the present. They didn't have buttons, but they had solutions. They weren't tailors, but they were designers. Function dictated form, and the form kept them alive. And now, wrapped in their world, you feel it too. The wind outside sharpens into something meaner overnight. By morning, it howls through the rock crevices like a ghost with a vendetta. But inside the cave, the group is already up, stretching, rearranging, and starting the day's tasks. You blink the sleep from your eyes just in time to hear something that stops you cold. It's not a grunt, not a growl. It's a sound with rhythm, intent, almost words. A man is standing near the fire, turning a small bone tool in his hand. He's talking, not in English, of course, not in any language you'd recognize, but the cadence is unmistakable. It's a string of low, nasal syllables, rising and falling in patterns. Another woman responds in kind, her voice softer, more clipped. They exchange several back and forths before both nod and move in different directions. You're witnessing something precious. Speech, or the prehistoric ancestor of it, of Neanderthals, lacked a written language, but that didn't mean they lacked communication. The FOXP2 gene, the one tied to speech and language in modern humans, is present in their genome too, and their anatomy backs it up. The position of the hyoid bone, the structure of the vocal tract, all signs point to capability. Not identical to ours, perhaps, but capable nonetheless. Still, historians argue whether they used full grammar or just a rich variety of meaningful noises. Was it a proto-language, a musical communication style, or were they, as some suggest, whispering in their own complex dialects that modern humans would never understand? You move closer. A young girl is trying to mimic the adult man's phrases. She repeats a two-tone whistle, then a sharp hen. He corrects her, tapping his chest, then pointing to a stick, then to himself. Is it teaching repetition? You're watching language being taught. This is not mimicry. It's mentorship. Language, after all, is about more than survival. It's about nuance, jokes, warnings, stories. You hear another trio trading noises that seem almost musical. One hums a rising tone. Another responds with a downward echo. Then a soft tapping on a hollow log joins in. Rhythm, call and response. It's not a song, but it could become one. They speak with their hands too. Gestures fill the air, especially when hunting strategies are discussed or tools are shared. It's a full-body language, shoulder shrugs, hand taps, eyebrow raises. If modern toddlers can create complex signs before they speak, why not these Ice Age kids? You follow a group into the forest edge where they begin to forage. One woman points to a cluster of mushrooms, shakes her head sharply, then gestures to a patch of lichen-covered bark. Another nods and repeats the name sound the first woman used. Ntha, maybe, It's communication at work, learning encoded in sound. 1,000 generations of wisdom carried on the breath. Suddenly, you realize the cave isn't quiet. It's rich with sound, not loud, but layered. The crackle of fire, the rustle of hide, and beneath it all, the hum of meaning. Small utterances, short phrases, noises with purpose. You once thought Neanderthals grunted, but here now, you hear a language of the wild. One man approaches, another points at a series of notches carved into a stick and taps it in a pattern. A response follows. It's not math, not as you know it, but it is counting. Keeping track of days, hunt tallies, moon cycles. Hard to say, but the marks are intentional, and the exchange feels precise. You pause to consider something Neanderthals survived for hundreds of thousands of years. You don't do that without passing on knowledge, without teaching, without some form of narrative. Maybe they didn't recite sagas around the fire, but maybe they shared warnings in rhythm, stories in humming, names in whispered symbols. A young boy runs past, shouting something repetitive. Na, 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 na. He's carrying a bone flute. It only plays 2 notes, but the tune he's trying to invent is unmistakable. Music, too, may have belonged to them. One flute found in Slovenia, carved from a cave bear femur, still sparks debate. Was it truly theirs or coincidence? You watch the child blow into the hollowed bone again. It squeaks. He giggles. Everyone else ignores it. A daily soundtrack. Background noise in a very human world. As you sit back down beside the fire, one of the older women begins to speak. Slowly, rhythmic. Others fall silent. She gestures now and then toward the horizon, toward a pile of stones toward her chest. It feels like a story. Not a fable exactly, but a memory, an explanation. Perhaps about where they came from, or why the sky changes, or how someone brave once fought off a predator and earned the right to sit by the fire. You don't understand the words, but you understand what they are: a shared past, oral history, the seed of culture. And here's the part that stays with you. None of it is written, none of it recorded, but in the moment, it's alive. And that's what language is at its core, not just communication, but connection. The woman finishes her story with a soft click of the tongue, and silence returns. Not awkward, not uncertain, just full. The listeners nod, one smiles. A child mimics the ending sound, and just like that, the moment is passed on. You close your eyes, the crackling fire filling your ears, and you think they may not have written symphonies or built cities. But they spoke, in tone, in breath, in ways that mattered. And maybe, just maybe, they sang. The wind has quieted today. The sky overhead is a thick stretch of steel gray, and you sense the air has shifted. Something solemn tugs at the atmosphere. The camp isn't bustling. It moves slower, quieter. A group has gathered near a ring of stones beneath a sparse pine grove not far from the main cave. You walk toward them, and the hush tells you to tread softly. At the center of the group lies a body, wrapped in furs, arms folded, a red smear of ochre painted across the forehead, a sprig of pine tucked behind one ear. It's a child, no older than 7, maybe 8. You feel your throat tighten. The group doesn't cry, loudly, doesn't wail or tear at their clothes, but their grief is unmistakable. 2 elders squat beside the body, carefully adjusting the wrappings. One adds a piece of antler, Another places a carved tooth near the child's hand. A final gift, a keepsake. Historians still argue whether such items were symbolic, magical, or purely sentimental. You've arrived at a burial. Neanderthal burial sites have been discovered across Europe and Western Asia, and they tell a story that modern humans once refused to believe that Neanderthals buried their dead deliberately, that they cared. This was once a radical idea, too human for our cousins. But evidence mounts. Graves with ochre grave goods. Careful placement. These aren't random deposits. These are farewells. The group moves slowly. A pit is already dug, handfuls at a time, probably over hours. Not a mass grave, not a dumping ground. A place, a location, chosen. They lift the child gently, 4 hands under his shoulders and knees, and lower the small bundle into the earth. Not tossed, lowered. A third woman smooths the hair back from the child's face before it disappears. The gesture is maternal, ancient, familiar. Around you, the people begin a low hum. Not words, not even a melody, but a vibration. A shared tone that starts in the chest and ends in the soil. You don't understand the meaning, but you do. You feel it in your ribs. The grave is covered with care. No stones are thrown. Instead, a few ferns are laid on top, followed by flat slabs of shale. A kind of marker, a way to say, this is where they are. This is where we remember. The ceremony ends not with a speech, but with stillness. Everyone remains a few minutes longer, heads bowed, palms open. A bird caws in the distance, and the forest seems to hold its breath. When the group finally disperses, it's with quiet footsteps. The elders return to the cave. Children are shushed gently. Even the fire seems to crackle more softly today. You sit near the grave a while longer, unsure what to feel. It's strange, isn't it? You expect primitive people to treat death as transactional, practical. A body is just a body, right? But clearly not to them. They honored the dead, and maybe in doing so, they imagined something more. Not heaven, not theology, but continuity. That the child mattered, that the memory mattered, that the loss mattered. Nearby, a man sharpens a blade. Another readjusts a pelt across a sleeping elder. Life resumes, but it feels different now, more layered. As if beneath all the survival, the toughness, the tools and tactics, there's tenderness. A cultural thread we rarely credit them with. A young girl sits near the grave, drawing patterns in the dirt. Not crying, just being close. You watch her form spirals, then erase them with her palm, then start again. Maybe she's mourning. Maybe she's thinking. Maybe both. You catch a glimpse of something sticking out from the grave, a carved bone figure. It's not detailed, but it is shaped. A torso, maybe arms, maybe symbolic of the child, maybe meant to help the spirit find its way. Again, historians disagree, but the gesture is clear. The child is gone, but not forgotten. Their body has returned to the earth. Their presence remains among the living. Later that night, back in the cave, no one speaks of the burial directly, but you see the way people lean closer, the way the fire is tended more carefully, the way a bone flute plays a softer note. Even in a world of frost and hunger, death is met with dignity. And you can't help but wonder, How many of our rituals, our tombstones, our prayers trace back to this, to ochre and antlers, to spirals in dirt, to pine needles tucked behind small cooling ears? You pull your borrowed pelt tighter. You breathe slower. You've seen grief. You've seen love. You've seen humanity, just not your version of it. The cave wall gleams faintly under torchlight. It's night again, and while the fire blazes low and steady, your eyes are drawn away from the flickering figures around it to the rocky canvas behind them. Not a blank wall, not by a long shot. This one's alive with symbols, dots, lines, palm prints, smudges of ochre red and soot black arranged in patterns you don't recognize but can't look away from. You rise and step closer. A young boy watches you approach, and without a word, hands you a stick of charcoal. You decline gently. Tonight you're here to observe. A woman dips her finger into a mixture of ochre and animal fat, then adds a spiral near the top of the wall. She hums while she works not a melody, just a gentle vibration. Another hand reaches past her to place dots around a shape that resembles, is that a bison maybe? Or maybe a dream of one? Neanderthal art was once dismissed as imitation. Surely early humans made all the real cave paintings, bison, horses, hand stencils. But then archaeologists found pigment in Neanderthal-only layers. A red disc in El Castillo cave, a ladder shape in La Pasiega, shells with paint residue. Suddenly, the story shifted. Historians still argue whether Neanderthal art was art for art's sake, symbolic expression, or simply practical. Was the dot a map, a memory, or a mark that just felt right to make you watch as two children press their hands against the wall, then blow red dust through hollow reeds? The result? Ghostly prints. Signatures without names. You'd call them stencils, but they feel more like whispers. I was here. I mattered. The tools are crude by modern standards. Sticks, stones, bone brushes. But the technique, masterful. They layer color, smudge edges, dot patterns with surprising symmetry. This isn't scribbling. This is intent. One man uses a bit of chewed bark to apply black pigment in tiny dots that form a zigzag, a tally, a trail. It could mean anything, or everything. You step back and take it in a wall that is both time capsule and mood board. Nothing is labeled, but every mark feels loaded with purpose. Maybe not yours, but theirs. Someone beside you chuckles an old woman squatting near a faded motif. She taps the wall, then mimes a fish. Laughter bubbles from a few others. Is it an old joke? A family tale? Even ancient walls carry inside jokes, it seems. Nearby, another section is more abstract rings of ochre with shell fragments embedded. The shells glint in the firelight, catching your eye, like forgotten jewelry. These too have been found in Neanderthal sites, decorated marine shells strung on twine smeared with pigment. Decoration, identity, or perhaps ritual. One child arranges pebbles into a spiral on the cave floor. Her older brother adds red clay between the stones. It's not a game, it's mimicry. This is how culture passes down, not in school, not in books, but in shared space, shared gesture. You crouch by the wall and notice something tiny, a line of crosshatches etched into stone. It could be counting, could be a border, could be someone's way of marking the days. Archaeologists found similar marks in Gibraltar, carefully carved, deeply incised, not random scratches, intentional, deliberate. You touch the stone gently. It's cold and rough, but the etching is smooth. Someone's finger once followed this line, maybe for comfort, maybe in grief, maybe to pass time while waiting for meat to cook. The idea that Neanderthals were only practical, no song, no beauty, no story, dies a slow death here in this cave, surrounded by pigment and purpose. These marks aren't accidents, they're expressions. You sit down, back against another stone, and watch as one girl adds a circle of black to the top corner. She leans back, squints, then adds a single red dot inside it. Her mother nods. Approval. Is it the moon? An eye? A symbol for something lost you'll never know. But that's the point. The mystery is the message. They didn't paint to impress us. They painted to remember, to connect, to exist beyond breath. And in doing so, they left us clues not about what they saw, but how they saw. Not just creatures surviving Ice Age winters, but artists making meaning in the dark. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the torchlight play behind your lids, and when you open them again, the wall seems to shimmer, alive with the whispers of those who came before. Not forgotten, not primitive, just human in their own language, their own palette. A crunch of footsteps on snow-dusted gravel signals change. You rise from the warmth of the cave and look out toward the horizon. There in the morning haze, another figure moves among the trees, taller, leaner, more upright in posture. Their movements are just a little different. Not better, just foreign. They're not Neanderthals. Homo sapiens have arrived. This moment is delicate, tense. Two kinds of human meeting face to face, neither quite sure what the other means. They don't charge. They don't flee. They watch. A few seconds stretch like rope between cliffs. One Neanderthal grunts a warning low in his throat, but no one makes a move. You stand between them, invisible, but breathless. The encounter ends with a distance. No contact, just mutual acknowledgement. The Homo sapiens retreat over the ridge. The Neanderthals return to their tasks, pretending not to care, but everyone's moving more carefully now. We often imagine this meeting as one of conflict. Sapiens as conquerors, Neanderthals as doomed. But the truth, as always, is messier. For tens of thousands of years, they coexisted, sometimes in tension, sometimes in trade, and yes, sometimes in intimacy. Shared hunting grounds, shared water, shared skies, and at some point shared blood. You hike with the Neanderthals that day, along a game trail that winds through fir and birch. The forest is still quiet, but the sense of proximity never leaves. Every snapped twig could be them. Every distant rustle could be another group. One woman carries a pouch with carved beads. She fingers them when nervous. Today she doesn't let go of it. They stop to inspect a tree with slash marks. Not theirs. Sapiens, likely. They sniff, crouch, examine the area. The tension isn't hostile, more like competing hikers realizing someone else has already claimed the last patch of dry grass. What now? A meeting does happen, days later. cautious one. Two small groups approach slowly, no weapons raised. The Neanderthals stay close together. The Homo sapiens send forward a young woman with a basket of dried fruit, a gift. One of the Neanderthals mimics the gesture, offering a strip of cured meat. It's not a peace treaty, but it's not a fight either. It's trade, simple, primal, and profound. Historians still argue whether these interactions were common or rare, whether cooperation happened more often than conflict. But the fact that both groups persisted in overlapping territories tells you something: they learned how to navigate difference. Language barriers, yes. Cultural ones, certainly. But there's one universal need: for food, for warmth, for survival, and perhaps for connection. You watch as a young Neanderthal exchanges a polished bone tool for a coil of dried herbs. They don't speak, but they understand. Days later, you see even more signs of shared space. A trail previously avoided is now trodden by both, a pit trap set with unfamiliar rope. The sapiens' influence is subtle but growing. Some of the younger Neanderthals are curious. They imitate sapiens' gestures. One even tries on a strip of dyed fabric, laughing when it slips off his head. Others are wary. They remember the change, the crowding, the competition. That night, around the fire, the elder tells a long story. You recognize parts: the arrival of new people, the challenge of change. It's not angry, it's wary, thoughtful. A lesson, perhaps, or a prophecy. The Neanderthals don't fear sapiens like monsters, but they feel the shift. Something in the world is tilting. It's not a war, it's a slow eclipse. Still, for now, they share the forest. The sky holds room for both, and you, standing between them, see something beautiful in that fragile moment of coexistence. You see the possibility that the world once held not one kind of human, but two. The forest grows still, the air heavy with snow, about to fall. The Neanderthals are traveling light today, shifting camp toward a grove near a warm spring they've used before. It's not far, but the journey isn't just about location. It's about distance from the newcomers. You've seen it building over the past days. Not open fear, just a subtle recalibration. Routes altered, watch shifts doubled, food stored in secret caches. The Homo sapiens may not be enemies, but they're also not kin. And yet, kinship is closer than you think. One night, when the fire burns low and the shadows dance tall on the cave wall, you notice something new. A young Neanderthal woman sitting side by side with a sapiens man. Quiet, comfortable, not trading, not watching, just there. She brushes a lock of his hair aside. He offers her a carved token. It's tender. The archaeological record is full of hints like this. Neanderthal DNA lives in modern humans, not as museum pieces, but in our very skin bones and blood. Between 1% and 4% of the genomes of non-African humans today carry Neanderthal legacy. That didn't happen through war. It happened through intimacy. Not always romantic, perhaps. Sometimes political. Sometimes desperate. But often it seems mutual. Historians still argue whether these encounters were rare exceptions or common blending. But you're watching one now. unfolding beside a bar under starlight, no drama, no fanfare. Just warmth, companionship, maybe even love. A child nearby chews on a piece of dried fruit and watches the couple with sleepy eyes. The boy is clearly Neanderthal. His broad brow and squat body shape give it away, but his movements, his gestures, they mimic the sapiens man. A blend, a bridge. Another group returns from a foraging trip and displays what they've found. Roots, eggs, dried insects, a rabbit. The sapiens among them trade tools again, but this time they sit down to eat together. Around the same fire. Language barriers crumble with routine. Hand signs grow into shared expressions. One sapiens woman starts copying a Neanderthal chant, a low rhythmic hum used when cleaning hides. She gets it wrong at first, then better, then right. Everyone laughs. But even this closeness has shadows. You hear a whispered conversation between two Neanderthal hunters. Quick glances, low growls, gestures toward the sapiens. Not everyone trusts. Some feel encroached upon. Their hunting zones are more crowded, resources thinner. The comfort of isolation is gone, and darker signs emerge too. You pass an old kill site, bones, stripped bare fire pits left smoldering. Neanderthal tools, but also sapiens flakes. Something went wrong here. There's no blood, but the absence is loud. Later, you spot a skeleton in a ravine. Scavengers have done their work. The skull bears bite marks, but not from wolves. From teeth. Human teeth. The femur is cracked marrow missing. Whether from ritual, starvation, or war, one thing is clear. Someone ate someone else. Cannibalism. It's not unique to Neanderthals. Homo sapiens have done it too, but it rattles you all the same. The blending of species wasn't always gentle, and yet by dawn, the child from the fire is still there, playing with both groups, switching from Neanderthal clicks to sapiens whistles like it's nothing. He builds a pretend hut out of sticks, muttering in a mix of sounds neither side taught him, his own language. You see in him something beyond history books, the evidence of coevolution. A mind shaped by two cultures, two ways of knowing, two kinds of strength. And he's not alone. More children follow, quietly at first, then boldly. Cross-group games, shared chores, borrowed tools. You realize that the borders between the groups are blurrier than either side admits. One evening, you catch a Neanderthal elder showing a sapiens girl how to flake stone properly. She listens, nods, tries, fails, tries again. He chuckles and nudges her hand into the right angle. She succeeds. They laugh. It's not a utopia, but it's not a tragedy yet either. The mingling isn't erasure, it's fusion. But you can't help but feel the tension in the balance. Something will tip it eventually. One species will edge the other out, not through malice necessarily, but through numbers, speed, or chance. But tonight, around this shared fire, the spark of connection flickers, and you watching from the shadows feel something heavy in your chest. They weren't enemies, not always. Sometimes they were lovers, sometimes teachers, and sometimes just people. Snow again. This time heavier. It falls in slow, wet clumps, dampening sound and softening the forest until even the trees look tired. You hunch your shoulders against the cold, but the Neanderthals barely react. They're moving with purpose, building a windbreak with scavenged branches and dragging fresh hides into place. The air smells like wet fur and wood smoke, the kind of weather that seeps into bones, especially if you don't have bones built like theirs. This winter is different, colder, longer. The animals are scarcer, the ground harder, the game leaner. You see it in the way the group picks over every last scrap of a hair, in how they melt snow, not just for drinking, but for washing hands, rehydrating dried meat, easing cracked skin. And yet the cold keeps coming. One morning, a forager returns empty-handed for the third day in a row. His shoulders slump as he lowers his pack. No herbs, no roots. The ground has turned to permafrost. The food web is unraveling. Historians still argue whether the Neanderthal extinction was due to climate competition or simple bad luck. But this winter, watching it unfold, you see the climate squeezing from all directions. A bitter wind cuts down from the north. Tools crack under pressure. Hide bindings snap in the cold. Fires struggle to catch in damp air. Everything that used to work now takes twice the effort. In the animals, those great woolly rhinos, mammoths, reindeer are migrating differently. Too fast, too far, too few. You witness a hunt go wrong. The team's timing is perfect. Their flanks secure their trap. Brilliant, but the reindeer spooks early. A shift in wind, a snap of twig. It bolts before the spear flies. The group returns, breath-steaming, shoulders heavy. No one blames, no one speaks. But you feel the worry settle over them like frost. One woman, older and once robust, now walks with a limp. A hip injury, maybe. She sits near the fire, but barely eats. She's not offered seconds. Not because they're cruel. Because there aren't seconds. Another morning, a baby's cry doesn't come. A still bundle is wrapped and buried quickly. No ochre, no grave gifts, just snow and silence. You see adaptations tighter, sleeping formations, more sharing of fire maintenance, more conservative use of wood and fat. But the resources are simply vanishing faster than they can adjust. A man tries a new trick, setting snares using human hair and sinew thread. It works for a day. Then nothing. The group has already combed this forest too thoroughly. They talk more at night now. Short phrases, hushed plans. One woman gestures south. Again and again. Warmer lands. But others shake their heads. Too far. Too dangerous. Even the sky seems angrier, gray on gray, no sun. Only the hiss of wind through bare branches. And yet, they keep going. One boy invents a game using frozen pine cones and a stick. He laughs. It's a short laugh, but real. Two women weave scraps of hide into fingerless mitts. A man sharpens tools he may never get to use, but he sharpens them anyway. Because that's what they do. They adapt. They try. Some sapiens groups have already moved past this region, leaving only footprints and scorched campfire rings. The Neanderthals linger. Whether from loyalty memory or lack of options, they stay. And the winter deepens. They stop visiting one of the caves, too exposed. The last time they used it, a snowdrift sealed the entrance for days. A child nearly froze. That memory hangs in the air unspoken. Instead, they stay in tighter shelters, sleep longer, move less. But even that requires calories they no longer have. You notice them chewing on things more often, bark bones, even leather. Not for nutrition, for something to do with the mouth. A distraction from hunger. One day, a woman doesn't get up. No wounds, no illness, just no more fuel. The fire that night is extra bright. Perhaps in honor, perhaps in denial. You watch them huddle. They still hum, still repair their tools, still share. But the silence between actions is growing. And outside, the snow keeps falling. The climate has changed, not a single storm, but a long, slow strangling of possibility. They've weathered ice before, but not like this. Not with competition. Not with less prey. Not when every decision becomes a gamble between warmth and motion. It's not drama. It's erosion, not a war. Just weather, day after day. You look at them and see people who fought with every ounce of knowledge they had, tools, fire, shelter, memory. But sometimes the world doesn't care how clever you are, and even superhumans get cold. You've never seen a place like this. Sunlight spills down white limestone cliffs that drop dramatically into the dark blue of the Mediterranean Sea. The air is salty, warm, filled with the shriek of gulls and the soft boom of distant waves. And here, clinging to the rocky shelf above the waterline, is the last known redoubt of the Neanderthals, Gibraltar. Far from icy forests and mammoth hunts, this is a world of sea breezes and seabirds, of caves, carved into stone by time and tide. The Neanderthals who made it here are fewer now. A single band, maybe two. You recognize some of the faces, leaner than before, quieter, but still sturdy, still alive. They've made the most of this cliffside refuge. You spot fish drying on sun-warmed rocks. A seal skull, propped on a stone, perhaps as warning or memory. Oyster shells crushed underfoot. Gone are the giant reindeer and woolly rhinos of earlier hunts. Now, it's birds, crabs, limpets, the occasional dolphin carcass washed ashore. It's quieter here. Not just as sound, but in life. No children play near the cave mouth. The youngest here is maybe 10, already trained in spearing fish and snaring gulls. Still they endure. You walk with them along the ledge trail, carefully picking your way between rockfalls and sudden drops. They gather seaweed. They nudge limpets from the stone. You watch a woman crack open a sea urchin with practiced ease. They know this place. They've made it theirs. Inside the cave, the walls are dark with soot, but dry and sheltered. The hearth is smaller, the sleeping space tighter. You see carved notches in the rock counts of days, maybe moons. A row of small handprints. A final tally of presents. Here, time feels different, compressed, measured, precious. You ask yourself, do they know they're the last? Probably not in the way we mean, but they sense it. You see it in the way the elders watch the sea long after the sun goes down, in the way they pass down fire-starting techniques and stoneworking skills, even when there's no one young enough to inherit them. One man carves a shape into the soft limestone, two intersecting arcs. Not decorative, not quite symbolic. Just a mark, a presence. Oh, we were here. Historians still argue whether this small Gibraltar population was truly the last of the Neanderthals, but the evidence is strong. The cave at Gorham's holds signs of their presence as late as 40,000 years ago, well after the species had disappeared from most of Europe. The climate helped here, warmer, more stable. The sea provided when the land failed. It bought them time, but not enough. Each evening, they light their fire with care. Not ritual, not nostalgia necessity. The wind along the cliffs is tricky. Sparks die easily. One woman sings softly as she fans the coals. It's a lullaby or something like it. A wordless tune. A call into the dark. They sleep huddled close, bodies bent to the curve of the rock. Some snore. Others breathe in a rhythm that matches the waves below. You feel the quiet press, and not empty, but full of everything unsaid. You explore the cave's far corner the next day and find a cache bone tool's ochre, a few worn shells. Nothing fancy, but arranged, protected, like they hoped someone might find them. You run your fingers along a groove carved low on the wall. A child's height, faint but deliberate. There's something so intimate about it, so close. You wonder what that child looked like, what they dreamed of, what they feared. And then one morning the cave is empty. Not in the dramatic sense. No footprints leading into the sea. No tragedy. Just gone. No fire. No new carvings. The fish left to rot. You sit there for a long time, the sea wind playing with your hair, the gulls squawking overhead, and you realize this is how it ends. Not with battle, not with conquest, with absence, with a quiet fading of voices that once filled the stone with stories. But don't mistake it for failure. They didn't die because they were weak. They didn't vanish because they were inferior. They simply reached the edge of the world, of the weather, of time, and they met it with grace, grit, and dignity. The last Neanderthal didn't leave a monument. They left this cliff, these shells, this song in the wind, and now you carry it with you. Thousands of years pass in the blink of an eye. You sit now, not in a cave, but in a laboratory, surrounded by glass steel and humming machines. The air smells like bleach and electricity. Someone in a white coat peers through a microscope. Another adjusts a computer model of a chromosome on a glowing screen. This isn't Neanderthal territory anymore. Or is it? You glance at the screen and see a spiral of color, a double helix, DNA. And inside it, folded invisibly within the helix of modern humans, are traces, signatures, whispers of them. It turns out Neanderthals never really left. In 2010, the Neanderthal genome was sequenced for the first time. It was a bombshell. Not only did they share 99.7% of their DNA with modern humans, but 1% to 4% of that DNA still lingers in the genes of non-African populations today. Every time you sneeze oddly, metabolize fat differently, or grow strangely robust knuckles, well, you might be saying hello to your Neanderthal ancestor. Historians and geneticists alike were floored. The old story of extinction had to be rewritten, not a clean vanishing, but a merging. Not they died, but they joined. That love affair by the fire. That mixed child who giggled in two tongues. That wasn't a one-time event. It happened over and over, quietly, naturally across generations. And today, those unions echo inside billions of us. You feel your breath catch. Maybe you're carrying their fire right now in your sinuses, your immune system, even in your skin's ability to handle UV light. Your ancestry test might call it archaic admixture, but you know better. You know it's memory. Some of the genes you carry may come from high-altitude adaptation. Others affect how your blood clots or how you respond to viral infection. The evidence suggests that Neanderthal DNA helped humans survive in Ice Age Europe, a genetic toolkit inherited from superhumans. But not all the gifts were helpful. Some genes associated with Neanderthal ancestry have been linked to depression, nicotine addiction, even susceptibility to certain illnesses. It's a mixed bag, like any family legacy. Still, isn't that what inheritance is? A patchwork, a blend, a muddle of stories and traits passed along whether we remember the source or not. You return to the virtual skull reconstruction on the lab's display. It rotates slowly, those wide brow ridges, the thick jaw, the large eye sockets. Once mocked as brutish, now majestic and familiar. You wonder if they walk down the street today, dressed in modern clothes, would you notice? Probably, but not because they're grotesque, because they're recognizable. Like cousins from a branch of the family that didn't come to the reunion for a few millennia. You step outside into a city, buzzing with traffic and screens and schedules, and suddenly, everything feels layered. That person jogging past, carrying Neanderthal muscle structure. The barista making your coffee, maybe sharing taste receptors passed down from a cave on a limestone cliff. They're not gone. They're everywhere. You see it in kids who love the outdoors, in people with unusual lung capacity, in those whose immune systems react a little too strongly. Neanderthals live on in fragments, echoes, quirks, and in the quiet ways our bodies remember what our minds forgot. Historians still argue whether the Neanderthal influence was foundational or incidental. But here's what you've seen, what you know: they shaped us. Not just genetically, but culturally, emotionally. Because we didn't replace them. We absorbed them. And in doing so, we became more than we were. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine the firelight again. The cave, the ochre, the hum of voices older than words. It's still in you. Right now. A flicker behind your heartbeat. A whisper in your bones. You're standing in a museum now. Quiet footfalls echo across polished floors. Glass cases glow under spotlight halos. One holds a single flint scraper. Another, a fossilized femur. There's a skull, broad, heavy-browed, with a gentle slope to its forehead. Familiar now. The plaque reads Homo neanderthalensis. But to you, that's no longer a label. It's a name, a life, a presence. What did they leave behind? So much more than bones. You stroll past exhibits of tools, Musterian hand axes, bone, awls, scrapers, and spear points. Not crude, not haphazard, refined. Designed for specific jobs. Some with grip adjustments. Some heat-treated for durability. These weren't just rock tools. They were solutions, and each one tells a story of knowledge passed down parent to child, elder to youth through gesture, repetition, and trust. At another case, You spot pigments, chunks of ochre, ground minerals, bits of charcoal. Artifacts once dismissed as accidental, now reinterpreted as intentional. Nearby hangs a replica of a wall, carving zigzags etched into rock. Maybe symbolic, maybe a warning, maybe someone's way of saying I was here. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals had true culture, whether they used symbols as we do, whether they thought in metaphor or only in reaction. But evidence piles up burial practices, beads, shared food, risk-sharing storytelling. Every generation uncovers another piece of proof that they lived with meaning. You notice a pair of visitors, kids, maybe 10 or 12, looking at a display of bone flutes and painted shells. One says, "Wait, they made music." The other nods. They were like us. They don't say it with surprise. They say it with awe. Further down the hall is a 3D reconstruction of a Neanderthal campsite. Hearths ringed with stone. Hide-wrapped figures crouched around a fire. Wooden racks for drying meat. A cradle made of woven branches. You stop there transfixed. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's quiet, lived in, real. You remember the firelight in that first cave, the soft hums, the cordage made from gut, and the clothing stitched from deer hide. They didn't leave behind pyramids or cities, but they left structure, harmony, order. You see a timeline now. Neanderthals here for over 300,000 years. 3 times longer than modern humans have existed so far. We think of history as acceleration. Bigger, faster, smarter. But maybe endurance is the truer mark of wisdom. Their legacy is subtle. It's the careful placement of stones around a fire. It's the bones arranged deliberately in burial. It's the wear marks on a flint blade that show hundreds of uses. It's in the DNA we carry, in the ideas we trace back, in the fact that you're thinking about them right now. They didn't write books, but they left traces on walls. They didn't build towers, but they shaped tools that could change bone wood and life. They didn't invent the wheel, but they knew how to move forward. One last case catches your eye. A single molar yellowed with age once lodged in the jaw of a woman who lived and died in a cave near modern-day Croatia. It shows signs of infection, but also of healing. She survived it for years because someone fed her, protected her, gave her time. That's not just biology, that's compassion. And that's what they left behind too, a record of care, a reminder that humanity didn't begin with civilization. It began with each other. You find yourself standing not in a cave, not in a lab or museum, but somewhere quieter. A windswept hilltop. The earth beneath your feet is cold and solid. No plaques, no artifacts, just skystone and silence. It's a good place to think. You've walked beside the Neanderthals now, through firelit caves, frozen forests, coastal cliffs. You've watched them build, eat, mourn, paint, love, adapt, and endure. And the thought that comes, uninvited but insistent, is this: what if they had won? Not in a conquest sense, not dominance, but existence. What if Neanderthals had remained openly, visibly alongside us? 2 species cohabiting the world side by side. Different bodies, different thinking, same planet. How might our societies be different if our reflections came in more than one form? If intelligence had more than one face? If empathy and expression and survival had a sibling branch? There's no alternate history here. No sci-fi fantasy. Just what if? What if instead of erasing them from our narrative, we had written them in Neanderthals didn't disappear because they failed? They were skilled social and staggeringly resilient. They survived climate swings, predators, illness, and the unknown. For hundreds of millennia, they lived deeply human lives. And when they vanished, they didn't leave a smoking ruin. They left a gap. But not entirely. Because they gave us gifts, genetic and cultural. They gave us patience and craft reverence for fire memory and pigment. They gave us story. Even if we forgot them, they did not forget how to live. Historians still argue what their extinction means. Was it absorption, displacement, climate collapse? A mix of all three, but no one can argue with the traces. The cave walls, the carved bone, the DNA, and maybe most of all, the lingering echo of another way to be human. Not better, not worse, just parallel. You sit on a stone and look at your own hands, flex your fingers. Think about the sinew-wrapped tools they once gripped, the hides they stitched, the fires they fed. You think about the children who pressed hands against cave walls and blew ochre dust, leaving behind ghosts of touch. You realize we carry more than their genes. We carry their choices, their courage, their presence. And in every campfire, every lullaby, every quiet moment where humans huddle for warmth or stare at the stars, they're still with us. Not forgotten, not gone, just resting. Wind picks up on the hill. The sky glows faint with the last orange of sunset. And somewhere, faint but certain, you think you hear a hum. Maybe it's the wind, or maybe it's them. Still here, still waiting. You open your eyes, and you're lying on your back in the snow. Smoke curls into the slate-gray sky. Your fingers are numb. Your shoes are, well, non-existent. You're shivering in clothes that feel like chewed leather, and something just howled not too far off. Welcome to the Ice Age where nothing is paved, heated, or Wi-Fi enabled. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I'd love to know who's curled up out there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake with a start. There's a pounding in your chest, not from fear exactly, but from cold, bone-deep cold. You're in a narrow hollow, scraped into a hillside, sheltered from the wind, but not from the world. Snowflakes drift past your eyelashes. Something earthy clings to your nose. Charcoal meat fat wet stone. And then it hits you. Don't know where you are. Not metaphorically, you literally don't know. This isn't a forest, it's a Pleistocene tundra. The trees look familiar, sure, but they're spaced wider, tougher. There's no traffic, no sound of planes, whistles, just the crunch of distant footsteps barefoot. One's impossibly quiet. Your clothes are stitched animal hides, the seams lumpy and uneven. Someone made these for survival, not fashion. Your breath mists out in ragged bursts, and when you look down, your hands are scraped raw. There's a scratch on your knuckle that seems infected already puffing at the edges. You shift to your knees. Bad idea. Pain shoots up your thigh. You're bruised, maybe sprained. Something large was chasing you. A bear. A rhinoceros even. You don't remember. Your memory starts with snow and panic. Then faintly, you hear voices, not English, not even language. More like huffing sharp grunts. One sounds like a bark, another a hooting laugh. They're getting closer. And your brain, still in 2025, does the only thing it knows to do. It screams, human. But when they come into view, that assumption cracks. Stocky, broad-nosed, heavy brow ridges. You're staring at Neanderthals. They stare back, faces unreadable. One is holding a branch like a club. Another points, tilting his head, lips pursed, as if puzzled. They talk among themselves with gestures and throat sounds, all while maintaining a semicircle around you. Your prey or puzzle? Maybe both. One squats close. His eyes are dark and intelligent, flicking across your face, your clothes, your wounded leg. He touches his own chest with a flat palm. Goo. Then touches your chest. Goo. It's not a question you can answer. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals could speak the way we do articulate speech, full grammar nuance. Some say yes, based on hyoid bones and inner ear structure. Others insist their communication was visual and emotional, hands-eyes posture. You shiver again. The man Goo grunts. Then, in a fluid, startling motion, he lifts you over his shoulder like a sack of grain. It hurts. You yelp. No one reacts. You are being carried into their world. Their camp isn't far. A low rock overhang curls like a frozen wave above a fire. Smoke snakes upward through a hole in the rocks, and the warmth hits you like soup to the soul. They sit around it in uneven rings, men, women, children, all fur-cloaked and weather-bitten. One gnaws on a bone like it's corn on the cob. Another is weaving sinew into something like rope. They don't cheer your arrival, but they don't expel you either. You're set down gently near the fire. Someone drapes a smelly pelt over your shoulders. A child eyes you wide-eyed, sucking on a chunk of something that might be fat or might be fungus. You try to smile. The child runs. Later, someone hands you a hot rock wrapped in hide. It burns through the cold in your palms. You almost cry. There's no ceremony, no welcome speech. But food is passed your way. A charred root, a knuckle, with some meat left on it. You're starving. You eat, badly, loudly. One of them mimics your chewing sounds with a snort. Laughter. Possibly. You just got roasted by a Neanderthal. Eventually, they bed down, no bedding, just fur mounds against each other like puppies. You curl up near the edge, unsure if you're included. No one stops you. Outside, the wind howls over the ice. Inside, the fire pops softly. One of them snores like a drum roll. You close your eyes. The cold's still there, but bearable. You have no idea where or when you are. But for now, you're alive. And the Ice Age has begun. Morning arrives like a slow ache in your bones. The fire's out. Your breath fogs the chill air. Around you, the clan stirs, a symphony of yawns, groans, snorts, and the occasional hacking cough that sounds worryingly tubercular. They rise without complaint, as if the concept of 5 more minutes hasn't been invented yet. You're stiff sore and still wrapped in a borrowed pelt that smells like something that used to be alive and quite angry. They notice you watching. One of the older women squints at you, then tosses a hunk of something vaguely bread-like in your direction. You catch it out of instinct. It's warm, chewy, and tastes faintly of bark and ash. Delicious. The same man from before goo maybe grunts and motions for you to follow him. You stand slowly, trying not to flinch. You limp a little, but no one offers help. In their world, you walk, or you stay behind. He leads you down a narrow path between stones into a clearing that holds a pile of bones, sorted, stacked, some gnawed clean, some still bearing scraps. Tools, 2 flint shards, blunt stone hammers, a broken antler with a suspiciously shaped tip. You realize you're being evaluated. The woman from earlier joins you. She circles once, then reaches out and pokes your side. You flinch. She says something sharp and abrupt. The others chuckle. You get the feeling she called you soft. Still, no one sends you away. You're given a task. Well, more like tolerated while you try. One of the younger Neanderthals, barely a teen maybe, demonstrates how to scrape sinew from a hide. He does it with quick, practiced flicks of a sharp-edged stone. You attempt the same. You cut yourself. He shakes his head, but not unkindly. He shows you again. Slower this time. This is how it begins. You are not a threat. You are not food. You are for now an orphan. And orphans, it seems, get absorbed if they prove useful. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals practiced adoption in any formal sense. What we do know is that they lived in tight-knit kin groups, rarely larger than 20 or 30 individuals. Social bonds were vital. Survival required collaboration. From foraging to fire tending, everybody mattered. An extra pair of hands, especially small trainable ones, was not lightly discarded. You sleep beside the clan again that night. This time, someone tosses a second pelt your way without looking. You recognize it as a quiet form of inclusion. In the coming days, they test you, not with riddles or duels, more like chores. Can you carry this? Do you flinch when blood is spilled? Will you chase down a wounded hare and not throw up halfway? It's all observation. No compliments, no gold stars. But each time you don't fail miserably, they let you closer. You're taught gestures, crude at first, pointing, nodding the sign for danger, for stop, for come eat. Their faces are so expressive. A raised brow ridge, a snort, through the nose, even ear placement seems to mean something. You watch, and you mimic. They laugh at your mistakes, not cruelly, almost fondly. One evening, you make them laugh on purpose. You imitate Goo's thunderous grunt when he tripped earlier, slipping in the snow. You exaggerate it just enough. There's a pause, and then a hooting series of chuckles. Even Goo snorts. Just like that, you're tolerated. There's a boy your age, probably with wild amber eyes and a habit of clacking his teeth when he thinks. You call him Clack. He shows you how to twist bark into cord, how to find the softest moss for bedding. He also pants like a wolf when he wants you to race. You lose, every time. The clan doesn't treat you like a guest, more like a half-useful pup they haven't decided to keep yet, but that's better than being left to freeze. Neanderthals likely had no word for adoption. But bones tell stories, they show healed injuries, signs of long-term care for disabled individuals, even evidence of communal burial. These weren't brutes, they were family. One day, an elder places a mark on your hand, charcoal, and crushed berry juice. It's crude, faint, but it matches a few others in the group. A clan sign, perhaps. You're not sure what it means. No one explains. But no one wipes it off either. That night, as you lie staring at the flickering firelight, dancing along the cave ceiling, something shifts. You don't know their language. You don't share their blood. But when a baby cries, someone shushes it. When wind howls outside, someone reaches over and stokes the embers. And when your breath fogs in the dark, you hear others breathing too. You're not alone anymore. You're not just surviving anymore. You're learning. Each day in the Ice Age begins the same cold, sore muscles and the realization that you're still here, still among them, still trying to figure out how to become more than just a tolerated mouth to feed. And gradually you realize you're being raised, not just watched. They're shaping you the way a stream shapes a stone. Your teachers aren't teachers. They don't stand in front of you with chalk and a blackboard. They demonstrate. Then they look at you. Your cue is to copy, fail, try again. Today, you follow Clack into the woods deep enough that the air smells of frozen pine and something musky, maybe reindeer. Maybe worse, he's showing you how to listen. Not just with your ears, but with your whole body. He crouches low behind a log and gestures for you to do the same. You do. He closes his eyes. You do the same. Then you hear it, a soft crunching in the snow. Not wind, not trees, footsteps. Far off, cautious. Clack taps your leg once, twice. 3 steps, then points. Your eyes open just in time to see the hind legs of something vanish behind a rock. You grin. He nods. A small nod, but in Neanderthal terms. That's practically a standing ovation. Neanderthals, it turns out, were sensory geniuses. Their brains were larger than ours, especially the areas linked to vision and movement. Historians still argue whether this made them better hunters or just differently wired. But one thing's clear: they saw more than we do, heard more, smelled more. You can't afford to miss things when they're your only clues to survival. So you learn to smell fresh water before you see it. You learn that crows circle wounded prey, and where there are crows, there might be dinner. You learn to tell time by the texture of shadows on rock. And memory, that becomes your most treasured tool. The clan trains memory without calling it training. Around the fire, they mimic yesterday's hunt gestures, expressions, reenacted moves. You must remember where the elk ran, where the ice cracked, where Goo nearly lost a toe. You're expected to learn the landscape, not just as a map, but as a song of smells, sights, and risks. One evening, you try to help an elder, short, squat, mostly blind, gather firewood. He grunts at you. At first, you think he's angry. Then you realize he's testing your recall. Yesterday, he'd shown you a hidden cache of dry bark. Today, he points vaguely east. You remember the stump. You find it. You return with an armful. He says nothing, but he does pass you a sliver of dried meat that night. That's thanks. Even play becomes training. The children roll bones across the floor of the cave, trying to knock pebbles into hollows. Seems silly, until you realize it's refining their aim, their prediction skills. You join in, you lose, then you get better. Historians still debate whether Neanderthals had structured games or if all play was practical. But the evidence of carved bone toys, small animal figurines, and decorated tools suggests a life rich with subtle instruction. Clack shows you how to echolocate a rabbit tunnel by tapping with a stick and listening for the hollow thud. Goo shows you how to press your cheek to frozen ground and listen for distant herds. A woman with a scar across her lip teaches you to mimic bird calls. When your voice cracks mid-whistle, she barks a laugh. You pretend to storm off. She snorts again. You're bonding. Over time, you start noticing things before they do. A broken branch that wasn't there yesterday. A fresh paw print in the snow. A strange hush that settles before a storm. One afternoon, you spot movement high on a ridge. You squint antlers, then muscle. A bull elk. You don't speak, but your gesture is sharp. The group sees. The hunt begins. You won't lead it, but you've proven your eyes are sharp. And with that, something shifts. The next morning, Goo drops a flint shard in your lap. It's ugly, misshapen, clearly not a prize tool. But he doesn't take it back. He waits to see what you'll do. You take it. You hold it wrong at first. Then you watch how he grips his own. You try again. It's not much, but it cuts. You're not just part of the group now. You're being sharpened. This is the day you realize you're not just pretending anymore. You are one of them, or close enough that no one bothers to correct it. It starts with urgency. You wake to barking grunts, the kind that slice through sleep like a stone through ice. The clan is moving, fast. There's a kind of pulsing in the air that tells you it's time to hunt. Not the usual foraging walk or slow deer track recon. This is the real thing. They hand you tools, not sleek bows or polished spears. No, these are heavy wooden shafts tipped with jagged flint. One has dried blood on it. You get the one with a splinter. Clack slaps your shoulder twice. It's not affection. It's readiness. Then you run. It's not a sprint. It's a controlled, measured chase over uneven ground slick with frost. You're not used to this. Your lungs burn like you swallowed the campfire. But you don't stop. No one stops. Ahead, a dark smear on the horizon moves a wounded bison. Huge. Slower than it should be. Maybe old. Maybe limping. And now it's marked. The group fans out. No words, just signals. A palm down means wait. 2 fingers up means circle left. You've seen this before, from the sidelines. Today, you're in the line. Your hands are shaking. Not from cold, but adrenaline. You want to say you're not ready, but there's no pause button in the Ice Age. Clack gestures. Your flank. Your position. You nod, heart pounding. Then the bison sees you. It turns, just slightly. Its breath fogs out in thick clouds. You can see the white scars on its side. It's been through worse. And then it charges. Not at you, thank Mammoth, but toward the left, where 2 elders wait hidden. They leap out with a howl. Spears fly. One grazes its side. The bison bellows blood spattering like paint across snow. You move not from bravery, but instinct. You position yourself where they told you. The bison swerves. It's working. Your moment comes. You don't remember deciding, but your arm lifts, your shoulder swings, and the spear leaves your grip. It doesn't hit. It clatters off a rock, skidding away like a scolded dog. But Clack sees. He gives the faintest nod. You tried. You didn't freeze. That counts. The beast goes down eventually, 3 spears a fall, a final gurgle. The clan surrounds it. There's no shouting, no high fives, just quiet, intense work. You help gut it. The smell is overwhelming blood, heat, bile. You fight not to gag. An elder hands you a dull flint and points at the hide. You cut. You don't do it well, but you do it. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals hunted alone or in ambush groups. Recent finds, like carefully stacked animal bones and wear patterns on their joints, suggest coordinated effort. They likely lacked projectile weapons like ours, but compensated with strategy and sheer fearless closeness to danger. That night around the fire, the mood is subdued but satisfied. Someone tosses a rib toward you. It lands in your lap with a wet thunk. You take that as a compliment. You eat in silence. Marrow drips down your chin. You don't wipe it. Later, Clack reenacts the moment the bison slipped, mock staggering, wide-eyed arms flailing. Everyone laughs, even you. Then he mimes your throw, exaggerates it, makes it look like you aimed for the moon. More laughter. You roll your eyes, still you smile. You're not the hunter they trust with the first spear, but you're not the outsider anymore either. You faced fear, you flung a stick, you got laughed at, but you also got fed. And in this world, that's everything. They say silence is golden. Here, it's survival. You wake up the next day to find Goo squatting beside the fire, tracing lines in the ash with a charred stick. He's not drawing pictures, he's giving instructions. And the only sound is the pop of a pine knot burning. He grunts once, looks at you, then points to his eyes, then at you, then at the path. You're to follow him, quietly. So begins your first lesson in language without words. Today you're not hunting, not tracking. You're learning how to speak with silence. Goo walks with purpose, but slowly. He moves like a shadow pretending to be a man. He stops, kneels, gestures to a broken branch, points at a patch of disturbed snow, then lifts 2 fingers. 2 deer. 2 hours ago. 2 mistakes you made. You furrow your brow. He notices. He makes a face, not mockery, more like a shrug, then repeats the gesture, slower, fingers slicing the air like blades. 2 tracks, heading south. You nod. Goo nods back. This is how you learn. Neanderthal communication remains one of archaeology's great mysteries. They had no written language, no recorded stories. But their brain structure, particularly the Broca's area tied to speech and comprehension, suggests a capacity for symbolic thought. Historians still argue whether they used full speech proto-language or a complex mix of gesture, facial expression, and sound. What you experience feels like a ballet of meaning. Every shrug, squint, lip press, finger twitch, each gesture holds multitudes. Back in camp, the others communicate the same way. A mother hushes her child with just a tilt of her chin. 2 teens share a joke without a syllable. You watch them double over gasping, silent laughter. You feel envy, then curiosity, then resolve. You will learn their language, even if it isn't a language. Clack becomes your tutor. He exaggerates gestures like a theater actor, overdrawn expressions, grand hand sweeps. You learn the symbol for danger involves the teeth, not the hands. That me is tapped on the shoulder blade, not the chest. That stop depends on urgency. Palm up for gentle full hand thrust for immediate. Sometimes it feels like mime, but deeper. You begin to sense emotion in posture alone. Fear is in the curl of toes. Suspicion in a half-turned back. You start replying. At first you're clumsy. You accidentally signal food when you mean fire. You confuse wait with run. Goo shakes his head more times than you'd like, but you keep trying. And then one day, around the evening, embers a girl signs something to you. Quick fingers, amused smirk. You hesitate, then respond. She bursts out laughing. Not at you. With you. You said it right. Later, an elder tells a story. Not with words, but movements. He mimics a bear, shoulders hunched, lips snarled. Then a brave little figure, possibly himself, brandishing a stick. He dances, dodges, exaggerates. The clan watches transfixed. No one speaks. No one interrupts. It's storytelling without sound. And it's magic. You begin to understand their myths, their warnings, their humor, all encoded in muscle memory. Neanderthals may not have sung lullabies or recited poems, but they painted, they carved, they posed their dead with care. Their silence was not emptiness, it was intention. One night Clack frowns at you, points to your lips, then shakes his head. You pause, then mimic his frown, then smile. He nods. No talking, no noise. But everything is said. You're hungry, again. And that's just the beginning. Living with Neanderthals means you think about food constantly, not because you're picky, but because it's hard to find, harder to keep, and never ever tastes like anything from a grocery store. There's no bread, no sugar, no fruit, unless you find it and fight the squirrels for it. No cereal in the morning, unless you count grass seeds boiled into a mush so bland it makes air taste exciting. Breakfast, if there is one, might be last night's marrow. You scoop it with your fingers straight from the split bone. It's warm, greasy, and faintly metallic. Not bad, not good, but filling. And filling is the new delicious. Clack shows you how to check whether bones are fresh enough for splitting. Apparently, if it smells like rot, that's a no. If it smells like old socks, perfect. You learn to forage. The clan teaches you by leading you into the frost-bitten woods and waiting to see what you grab. The first few times, you choose poorly inedible bark-frozen leaves, and once a toadstool that makes Goo Bark laugh so hard he nearly falls into the fire. Eventually, you get it. You find winter berries hard as stone, bitter as betrayal, but technically edible. You unearth tubers from beneath frozen soil, then roast them into something resembling warm dirt. The flavor. Think potato with trust issues. Meat is a luxury, and by luxury, we mean something dead that won't kill you if you eat it. There's rabbit sometimes, elk if the hunters are lucky, and once mammoth. That day is burned into your memory. The sheer size of the animal, its eye like a polished stone. The blood in the snow. The meat, tough and gamey, took hours to roast and longer to chew. But everyone feasted. Neanderthals were not just meat eaters, though. Recent studies show traces of plant matter in their dental calculus. Yes, that's fossilized plaque, which sounds gross, but is basically nature's sticky notebook. Historians still argue whether they actively cooked plant foods or just ended up chewing whatever was stuck to the meat. Clack insists on flavor. He grinds wild mustard seeds with a rock and sprinkles it over his meat like a prehistoric Gordon Ramsay. You try it. It burns your tongue. He laughs. Cooking isn't a formal event. It's practical. Fires are tended carefully with stones to hold heat and wooden spits balanced over the flame. You once saw a woman test meat doneness with her pinky. You copied her. Burned yourself. She snorted, then handed you a cooked piece without comment. You learn how to use every part of the animal. Bones for tools, tendons for thread, fat for fuel, stomach lining for storing water. You almost admire the efficiency until you're the one cleaning out intestines with a stick and a prayer. And then there's the raw stuff. Sometimes it's just easier not to cook, especially when it's cold enough outside to refrigerate the planet. Raw fat gives energy. Raw liver, despite your instincts, seems prized. You take a bite once trying to fit in. It's warm, slimy, tastes like regret, but you swallow it, and they nod. That night, you share your first fire-cooked invention. You wrap berries in bark, place them near the coals, and wait. The bark burns. The berries turn to mush. But the smell, divine. You offer it to the group, cautiously. They sniff it. One bites. Chews. Doesn't spit it out. Success. Historians wonder whether Neanderthals cooked deliberately or stumbled into it. But the tools suggest thought. They had grinding stones, fire pits, and evidence of sequential cooking. They might not have had recipes, but they had routine. Ritual. One evening, an elder gives you a chunk of something. Odd. It's cold, chewy, tastes like fat soaked in pine needles. Turns out it's fermented. Fermented what? You don't ask. The more you adapt, the more you notice the rhythms. Fasting after failed hunts. Feasting when lucky. Seasonal shifts in diet. More tubers in winter. More berries in spring. You begin to crave things you never liked before. Roasted marrow. Cracked nuts. Smoked fish. Even the occasional beetle if it's crunchy enough. You stop dreaming of pizza. Mostly. Food becomes memory. The taste of scorched rabbit reminds you of the night you fell into the fire pit and scorched your eyebrows. Boiled roots remind you of the time Clack dared you to eat one raw, and you spent the next day regretting it. You're not just eating like an Ice Age kid, you are one. Pain comes without warning. A slip on ice, a jagged rock, a thrown elbow from a wrestling child. There's no doctor here, no clean gauze, no soothing antiseptic wipes with aloe and menthol. You bleed, you bruise, you swell, and then you deal with it. Today, it's your ankle. A misstep while gathering firewood, and suddenly you're on the ground biting back a shout. You try to stand. You fail. Goo appears within minutes. How did he know? And squats beside you. He examines the ankle with a grunt, then looks at your face. No words, just pain written in furrowed brows. You're not coddled, but you're not ignored either. He beckons two others. They form a makeshift stretcher with a hide and two thick branches. You're carried jostled back to camp. Clack walks beside you, chewing something with a sour face. He spits into a clay lump and kneads it. You're worried it's for him. It's for you. The poultice is awful. It smells like moldy mushrooms and dead leaves. They wrap your ankle with it, then bind it tight with sinew cord. No bandage. Just tree gunk and hope. But it works. Neanderthals were no strangers to injury. Their fossil record reads like a trauma ward healed fractures, fused joints, worn spines. Some skeletons even show signs of long-term care, broken bones that mended toothless elders who must have been fed by others. Historians still argue whether this reflects compassion, necessity, or both. You lie on your back for hours watching smoke curl toward the cave ceiling. Children drift by and poke your leg. One offers a bit of roasted root. Another drops a pebble in your mouth when you yawn. That's Charming Goo reappears at dusk, this time with a twig, not for splinting, for drawing. He sketches a deer, then a foot, then a broken line, then a face with X eyes. You're pretty sure he just invented a cartoon version of your accident. He chuckles. You laugh too. Pain, it seems, doesn't exempt you from teasing. The days pass in a haze of healing. You're fed more fat than usual. Someone grinds herbs into your soup. A woman hums while applying a new wrap to your ankle. It's a low, rhythmic sound, not quite music, but comforting. Maybe even medicinal. There's no talk of getting better, just doing what must be done. Clack brings you a stick. Not a walking stick, a carving stick. Boredom, after all, is also a condition in need of treatment. You scratch a crude figure into the wood. It looks like goo. You exaggerate the brow ridge. Everyone finds it hilarious. Eventually, you walk again, slowly, but you walk. And when another child falls bruising their elbow, you're the one who guides their hand to the right moss, the clean snow, the fire-warmed rock. You're not a healer, but you've learned. One day, you see an elder holding a shard of bone over a child's infected finger. He presses it in, not hard, but enough. The child doesn't cry. Much. The wound bleeds. Then it's bound. You look away. Neanderthals didn't have hospitals, but they had procedures. Bone tools suggest primitive surgery. Shell cups may have been used for bloodletting. Burned herbs chewed bark animal fat. Each had a place in their toolkit. Recent finds even point to the use of natural antibiotics like penicillium-producing mold. You once watched a woman boil a mushroom into sludge and smear it on a gash. It worked. Mostly. You learn to accept pain as part of the rhythm. There are no painkillers, just distraction, laughter, warmth, ritual. One night, you spot a man, older, grizzled, sitting alone. His leg is misshapen, long since broken. He still helps with firewood. He still carries meat. You offer to carry for him once. He shakes his head, but he claps your shoulder as you pass. Strength here is not measured in perfect bodies. It's in endurance, in community, in the silent agreement that no one gets through the Ice Age alone, even when it hurts. Childhood in the Ice Age is nothing like what you remember from your own. There are no toys waiting under pine trees, no cartoons with talking animals, no plastic playgrounds. But that doesn't mean it's joyless, just sharper around the edges. You wake before the sun, not because anyone tells you to, but because the clan is already up and the cave is suddenly too loud to sleep in. Children are playing, or at least what passes for play. A group of them is pelting each other with frozen pine cones. Another pair is dragging a long branch around in the snow, pretending it's a mammoth. The mammoth falls, dramatically. Everyone cheers. And then, as quickly as it began, the games end. One of the elders barks a short grunt. Instantly, the little ones split half to gather kindling, half to help skin a hare. You watch a girl, no older than 6, scrape sinew from a hide with expert speed, her hands calloused, her jaw set. Childhood here isn't just carefree mischief. It's rehearsal for survival. Your own part in this routine has changed. You're not the outsider anymore, not the novelty. You're part of the child pack, expected to pull your weight and endure like the rest. There are still moments of lightness. Clack shows you how to play a kind of prehistoric tag. Instead of tagging, though, you hurl a stick near someone's feet. If it lands close, they have to chase you. If it hits them, you lose your dinner. You lose your dinner, but later, Clack sneaks you a strip of dried meat with a smirk. Friendship, apparently, is edible. Neanderthal children were likely trained early in the tasks of daily life, hunting, gathering, tool making, fire tending. But that didn't mean they lacked imagination. Archaeologists have found traces of child-sized footprints running in circles through caves. Small carvings that seem like toys, and bones bearing marks not of work, but of practice. You learn through imitation. You watch the older kids mix charcoal and spit to make cave marks. You try. Your first attempt looks like a hairy snail, but they nod politely. One girl, covered in soot and missing a front tooth, shows you how to balance on a frozen log. You fall. She laughs, then pulls you up. Later that day, a small group of you ventures out to the riverbank. It's barely thawed, but you see something strange. Bones half buried in the mud. A rabbit. A bird. Clack pokes it with a stick, then mimics a death spiral. The others howl. You join in laughing until your stomach hurts. But even games have edges here. You witness your first funeral. A child, tiny, silent, wrapped in fur, and buried near the rear of the cave. No wailing, no speeches. Just quiet hands, placing carved stones beside the body. A feather, a tooth, maybe a favorite thing. You stand at the edge of the group, unsure. Then someone presses a warm hand to your back. They don't say anything, but it's enough. Historians still argue whether Neanderthal burials were symbolic or merely hygienic. But the care in the positioning of bodies, the inclusion of objects, and even evidence of flower pollen suggest ritual grief rendered without language. You carry that day with you. But life doesn't pause. The next morning, you're back to gathering bark and dodging pine cones. One kid tries to climb a tree and gets stuck. You help them down. The older ones nod. You're learning the balance, hardship, and freedom, responsibility, and joy. And you notice something else. The adults don't hover. They don't scold often. They expect you to try to fall, to get hurt, to heal. Childhood isn't a protected phase. It's training ground. Still laughter comes easy. Even in the bitter cold, even with cracked lips and scraped knees. You find joy in small things. Steam curling off a hot rock. A successful stone throw a perfect snowball ambush. You dream differently now. not of warm beds or cereal boxes. You dream of the hunt, of firelight, of laughter echoing in caves. You're not just surviving Ice Age childhood, you're living it. The fire is more than heat, it is life. And now, it's your responsibility. You're not told this with a speech or ceremony. One morning, Goo simply hands you a half-burnt branch, points at the smoldering embers, then walks away. You blink, look around. No one else moves. The meaning is clear. Your job now is to keep the fire alive. At first, it seems simple. Add wood. Don't let it go out. Easy until it isn't. The wind outside screams like a wounded beast. The smoke stings your eyes. The wood is damp, hissing angrily as you feed it into the pit. You blow. You fan. You nearly pass out from the effort. Someone throws you a piece of dried moss. You stuff it under the logs and hope. The fire coughs, then roars. Victory. The clan doesn't clap, but they glance your way, then return to their tasks. You've passed the first unspoken test. Neanderthal life revolved around fire. Cooking, warmth, safety, even light for tool making. Archaeological sites reveal deep hearths, layers of ash, and blackened bones. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals could create fire on their own, or simply maintained flames captured from natural sources. What's clear is this: once lit, the fire must not die. Now, it's your sacred duty. You watch how others tend it. The way Clack positions stones to reflect heat. How Goo checks for wind tunnels that suck the warmth away. One woman sprinkles herbs onto the coals, not for flavor, but for smoke. Mosquitoes hate it. You make a mental note. The fire becomes your companion. You sit beside it when others leave to hunt. You feed it like a pet. You whisper to it, even though no one would understand the words. It answers and pops and crackles, each one a kind of thank you. You learn to read it. A dull red glow means it's sleeping. Bright orange, hungry. Blue, bad fuel. You discover pine needles make it spit, while dry bark feeds it quietly. Once you nearly let it die. You'd been distracted, playing, maybe dozing. The embers dimmed. Panic set in. You scrambled for twigs, your hands shaking. You blew until your cheeks hurt. Nothing. Then you remembered the moss. You found some under the pile, dry and crumbling. You fed it to the coals, breathless with hope. It caught. Your fingers were singed. Your heart pounded. But the fire lived. You didn't sleep that night. Not because of punishment, but because now you understood. One elder sits beside you some nights. He doesn't speak, just watches. Once he points at the fire, then taps his own chest. Then yours. You nod. You're starting to get it. The role of firekeeper isn't about rank. It's about trust. Fire is fragile despite its power. Lose it, and the clan loses everything. And it's not just warmth. Fire keeps the beasts away. It smokes meat, dries, hides, boils herbs. It holds stories, shadows dancing on cave walls as elders mime battles, hunts jokes. You're the one keeping those shadows alive. You take pride in it. One day, a storm traps everyone in the cave. The wind howls, snow flies sideways, and the only thing holding back the darkness is your fire. Everyone crowds close, shoulder to shoulder, breathing in the warmth you've guarded. A child leans into your side. A woman hands you a better flint. Goo grunts and adds more wood. You feel it, then not just warmth, but worth. You've earned your place. The fire is not just fuel, it is family. Night falls like a heavy pelt across the land, silent, dense, and filled with the quiet dread of darkness. There are no lamps, no glowing phone screens, no comforting hum of a city. Only firelight, only breath, only the slow dance of shadows flickering against stone. You sit near the hearth, not because you're cold, but because it's the only light. Around you, the clan gathers as they always do when the world outside becomes too black to challenge. This is not bedtime. This is something older, something sacred. The cave is warm with body smoke and the subtle scent of cooked marrow. You're nestled between Clack and the soot-faced girl who has, against all odds, started braiding bits of dry grass into your hair. You let her. It feels normal. An elder shifts. Silence falls. He rises slowly, his back-bent knees crackling. Then he begins. No words, no speech, just movement. He hunches forward an animal, stalks, sniffs, then startles backward one hand, thrown dramatically over his chest. A predator. The others murmur. Lean forward. He twists his body, mimicking the tangle of trees. His eyes gleam in the firelight. You don't need words to know he's telling a story. Tonight's tale is about a boy. Maybe him. Maybe someone else. The boy sneaks out, tries to track a beast, fails, almost dies, and is saved by the spirit of the fire who leads him home. At least that's what you gather. The children gasp at the same moment. The adults grunt their amusement. Even Goo smiles. You find yourself smiling too. This isn't bedtime as you knew it. There's no book, no narration. But the rhythm of the gestures, the rise and fall of expression, the careful timing of silence. This is storytelling in its purest form. One person's memory projected like flame shadow against the stone. Neanderthal culture left no books, but what it did leave were hints, cave paintings, repeated handprints, abstract symbols scratched into walls. Historians still argue whether these were art ritual or language. But in moments like this, you believe they were all three. You remember your first night in the cave. The fear, the cold. Now it's different. Night is still dark, but it is not empty. The fire snaps. The elder collapses to his knees, mimicking the boy's exhaustion. Then gestures a spiral. Home. Safety. The end. The group exhales as one. Then comes the laughter. The children mimic the beast's death throes. One pretends to be the fire spirit, waving sticks like glowing limbs. Clack slaps his chest and falls dramatically. Everyone laughs. It's not all stories. Sometimes they sing. Not songs in the modern sense, but long, throaty hums that rise and fall in overlapping waves. You join in once, you're off key. No one cares. One woman uses a hollowed bone as a flute. 3 notes, always the same. It's not melody. It's a spell. For sleep. For peace. For connection. You lie down near the fire. Your place is claimed. The same stone under your head. The same hide over your legs. You close your eyes. A toe nudges your shoulder. It's the soot-faced girl. She hands you a smooth pebble. It's warm. You don't ask why. You just keep it. Outside, a wind moans through the trees. Inside, the fire hums. Shadows crawl. Someone snores. Someone whispers. You drift. Historians rarely discuss how ancient people slept, but evidence suggests communal sleep, shared warmth, shared space, shared dreams. No walls, no beds, just bodies and fire and the thrum of breath. You've never felt safer. In the darkness of this forgotten world, sleep is not the absence of life. It is part of it. It starts with a cough. Nothing unusual. Cold air, smoky cave, dry throats. But then it's another and another. Not yours. Theirs. And it doesn't stop. The elder, who tells the fire stories, his voice cracks one evening. Not from emotion. From something deeper. He clutches his ribs, doesn't finish the tale. By morning, he's lying near the back wall, breathing like a bellows with a hole in it. No one panics. Instead, quiet rituals begin. A woman you've never seen lead anything now moves with authority. She grinds herbs with a stone bowl, murmuring to herself. Someone brings water in a hollowed-out gourd. Another places warm stones near the sick man's feet. You offer to help. You're waved off, then reconsidered. A pouch is pressed into your hands. Roots bark something that smells like licorice and rot. You hold it like a relic. Caring for the sick is different here. There's no thermometer, no diagnosis, only observation and tradition. They keep him warm. They keep him quiet. They chew herbs and spit them into paste for his lips. They sing not loudly, but in a low thrum that echoes faintly against the stone. It's not beautiful, but it's comforting. And slowly, others fall ill. Clack sneezes once, then again. He pretends he's fine. You see him stagger when he stands. He shrugs it off. But you bring him water anyway. You are not immune, not physically, but maybe emotionally you're bracing. You've seen this coming. It feels like something old and familiar, now this wave of frailty. One night, you're asked to keep the fire going and watch over a feverish child. You sit beside her, the fire at your back, the sound of coughing all around. She looks at you with glassy eyes, then reaches for your hand. You give it. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals practiced medicine or simply endured. But the signs are there: healed fractures, deliberate burials, even evidence of yarrow and chamomile traces in their teeth, both known for their medicinal properties. This isn't apathy, it's effort. It's care rendered in silence and sweat. One morning, the elder passes. There's no wailing, no panic, just stillness. Then action. His body is cleaned, wrapped in fur, and placed at the far end of the cave. Tools are placed beside him. A carved stone, a bent, worn flint, a feather you remember from his hair. Someone paints 2 red marks near his eyes with berry juice. Then, without ceremony, they bury him. You help dig. It's not fast. The ground is hard. Your hands bleed. No one complains. Afterward, the fire is fed more than usual. Everyone sits close. The story isn't told that night. The silence is his. Illness doesn't end with him, but it fades. Clack recovers. Barely. The child you watched recovers too. You carry her around the fire once she's strong enough to walk. She throws up on your shoulder. You laugh. She doesn't. And then slowly, life resumes. The hunts restart. The bark returns to the cave. The laughter comes back, cautious but persistent. You realize something strange. This isn't just a tribe of survivors. It's a people with memory, with ritual, with empathy. You don't know their words, but you know their grief. You don't share their blood, but you share their loss. And as the fire crackles beside you that night, you feel it fully. The Neanderthals didn't just care for their own. They cared. There's no warning, no signal in the stars, just a shift in routine that you don't recognize until it's too late. It starts with silence. Not the quiet of sleep or storytelling, but an absence. The usual morning clatter of movement and muted grunts is gone. You rise and see the clan huddled at the cave's mouth, all looking in the same direction. You follow their gaze. Tracks, deep, fresh, not hoofed, clawed. Too wide to be wolf, too purposeful to be random. Something big has passed nearby. Goo is already preparing. He ties a bone knife to his belt. Others check spears, flint their patchwork armor of hide and gut. The atmosphere is different. Not a hunt, but something else. A test. A rite. Then Goo turns to you. He points at the tracks, then at your chest. His expression is flat. This is it. Your time. Your trial. You nod. Your stomach sinks. But you step forward. They don't come with you. Clack hands you a pelt. Soot Girl offers a half-dried fish. The others nod solemnly. It's all they'll give. This is your beast to face. Historians theorize Neanderthals had rites of passage, moments when a child crossed into the world of adults. We don't know the specifics, but burial goods, weapon marks, and the age of skeletal injuries all hint at moments of deliberate challenge. A final step into full inclusion. Your path takes you through snow that's ankle deep and growing. The forest looms. Shadows are longer. Sounds are sharper. You grip your spear like it's something more than sharpened wood. Hours pass. You track. You scan the snow. At first, nothing. Then movement. It's not what you expected. A lynx. Smaller than a bear. Faster than a boar. Its fur is matted. One leg drags slightly. Old. Wounded. Still dangerous. You freeze. Not from fear exactly, but awe. This creature isn't a symbol. It's real, and it's watching you. The lynx does not flee. It bares its teeth. Low growl, daring you. You raise the spear. Your hands shake. You don't want to kill it, but you must do something, so you shout. A guttural sound, not a word, but a declaration. You widen your stance. You lift your arms. Make yourself huge. The lynx hesitates. Then, with a flick of its ragged tail, it retreats into the trees. You breathe again. Barely. The decision was yours. The kill would have proven your strength. The mercy proves something else. You take a token, one tuft of its shed fur. Tuck it in your pouch and return. By nightfall, the clan waits. No one runs to greet you. But when you step into the firelight and toss the tuft at Goo's feet, he picks it up, examines it, grunts. Then he hands you meat, not dried, fresh, tender, the best cut. Clack claps your shoulder, harder than usual. Later, someone carves a notch into a bone hanging by the fire. Your name isn't spoken, but your place is marked. You sleep that night with a new weight in your chest. Not pride. Not quite. belonging. It begins with a sound that doesn't belong. Not animal, not wind. Something still, too still. You wake to find the fire cold. Goo is already at the cave entrance, staring into a sky painted with dust. The color isn't quite right, tinged yellow, like old teeth. No birds, no frost. Just dryness that tastes like chalk in your mouth. Then you hear it. Or rather, you don't. No hoofbeats, no herds. And that's the problem. The great beasts are gone. The morning stretches into a day without purpose. No hunting party sets out. No one sharpens tools. Everyone is waiting, listening. You try to speak, gesturing to clack to the others. Maybe we can scout. He shakes his head. His fingers make a circle, then a breaking motion. The herd is broken. Neanderthals relied heavily on seasonal migrations. Elk, mammoth, bison all moved with the rhythms of the land. When those rhythms faltered due to climate shifts, overhunting, or natural disasters, so did everything else. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals went extinct due to competition disease or simple bad luck. But all the theories agree on one thing: change came fast. And now, it has come for you. Tensions rise. Food is rationed. You get one strip of dried meat for the entire day. The younger children are fed first. No one argues, but you feel it. The ache in your stomach mirrored in every face. Fights begin. Small at first. Two men scuffle over a flint blade. A woman slaps a hand that reaches too early into the meat cache. Goo breaks it up without words, but the damage is done. One night, someone suggests moving. You don't catch every gesture, but the meaning is clear. Find new land, new food. But another elder protests. He signs danger. Ice strangers. Clack looks at you with something new in his eyes. Fear. That evening, as the fire spits low and weak goo calls you forward, he holds out a map, not parchment, but a flattened piece of bark marked with charcoal. Rivers, landmarks, animal paths. It's the closest thing to a strategy you've seen. He points to a far bend beyond the mountains, a place where the herds may still roam. It's days away, through snow, through risk, but it's hope. The group splits, some will go, some will stay. You're given a choice. It's not spoken, just the expectant stare of people who no longer see you as a child. You pack what little you have, a stone blade, your pouch, the lynx fur. You go. The journey is brutal. Frozen mud sucks at your legs. Wind slices your skin like knives. Two people turn back after a night without fire. One slips on ice and breaks a leg. He doesn't make it, but then footprints, wide, heavy, herd signs. The scouts return to the group grinning. There is food ahead. The relief isn't loud, just the quiet grunt of satisfaction, the shared nods, the renewed pace. The crisis is not over, but it's turning. Back at camp, days later, you find the cave feels smaller. Those who stayed are leaner, weaker, but alive. A feast is held not in celebration, but in resilience. You are given the task of passing meat, a simple thing, but it means everything. You survived the clan's winter, the hunger, the fear, the change, and you didn't break. The sky is a pale blue sheet stretched over the valley. The wind is gentler now. The herd is back. The food stores are full enough for everyone to eat without counting bites. For the first time in what feels like forever, there's laughter not born from hunger or pain. And yet, something inside you stirs. Restlessness. You've been here what months, years' time doesn't tick in this world. It settles like ash. You've forgotten the feel of shoes, the sound of music from a speaker. Your own language is something you think in, but never speak aloud. And now you're wondering, would you go back? That question doesn't come from a voice. It's not a test. It's a whisper, a memory, a flicker of modern life returning in dreams uninvited. A song hook, the taste of toothpaste, the strange, sterile scent of an elevator. And you imagine it waking up tomorrow in your own bed. The hum of the fridge, the soft glow of your phone. Civilization. Could you even handle it now? You think about the fire, about Clack, still snoring like a wild hog every night, about the child who now refuses to sleep without your hand nearby, about the soot-faced girl who now has soot-faced braids to match yours. You think about what you've become. Not a tourist, not a lost time traveler, a clan member. But you also think of the moments you hid your confusion, masked your longing for something, anything familiar. That time you watched a snowflake fall and thought, "This is beautiful," and wanted to say it aloud, but had no words. You still can't speak to them, not in sentences. But you know them, their rhythms, their moods, their stories in shadow and silence. Still, the idea won't leave you. Would you return? Historians debate what happened to the Neanderthals. Some suggest they were absorbed into Homo sapiens through interbreeding. Others say they simply vanished, outcompeted by faster, thinner, more adaptable newcomers. But what if they changed us? You wonder if, given the chance, would you step back through time's gate? Would you leave Clack behind, his lopsided smile and bone slingshot? Would you abandon the nightly hums around the fire, the smell of pine smoke in your hair, the cave ceiling you now call home? Or would you choose warmth over convenience, bone tools over Bluetooth, connection, wordless, messy, essential, over the clean disconnection of your old life? You try to imagine it. Walking into a modern room, lights flicked on with a switch, brushing your teeth, watching a screen. It all feels distant, clinical. You don't know what you'd choose. But tonight, you sit by the fire, the pelt across your shoulders, smelling of smoke and animal oil. Clack hands you a rock shaped like a bear. You give him one shaped like a tooth. There are no goodbyes, just now. And now you belong. You rise before dawn. Not because of duty, or fear, or cold, but because your body has learned to rise with the world. Snow has returned soft and silent. The fire glows faintly, its embers pulsing like a slow heartbeat. The others sleep curled like commas in the dark, breathing in unison. It's peaceful, sacred in a way. And you're thinking, again, not of leaving, but of learning. Of everything they gave you without giving. of what they etched into your bones. Like the patience to wait for the right moment, not the fastest one. Like the knowledge that hunger is survivable, but loneliness isn't. Like the fact that you can fix a torn hide with sinew and time. That fire listens when you feed it right. That you can navigate by stars you never used to notice. The Neanderthals taught you, though, not with books or lectures, just looks, grunts, actions repeated until you caught on. Clack once handed you a broken tool. You assumed it was a mistake. He watched you fumble, then showed you how to repair it. That wasn't a moment of teaching. That was a moment of trust. You remember the first time a child cried and reached for you instead of their mother. The first time Goo didn't inspect your fire in the morning. The first time you stood during a hunt, not beside, but with the others. Historians still argue about how much Neanderthals understood art-death hierarchy language. But none of them sat beside Goo while he sharpened a stone in silence so meaningful it felt like conversation. None of them played stick tag with a child who just finished chewing on a bird skull. They'll never know what you know. That these people, these so-called brutes, were gentle in their own ways. Were clever in ways that don't fit our definitions. Were full of lessons no textbook will ever list. You stretch, your back cracks. The snow outside glows pink with morning light. You grab your flint, your hide-wrapped pouch, your carved lynx token, and step into the day. The clan stirs behind you. Clack grumbles. Someone farts, someone sneezes. The world turns. You are not a visitor here anymore. You are the result, the memory, the echo. And as the Ice Age breathes its ancient breath down your neck, you feel no fear. Only understanding, only warmth, only the quiet certainty that you could live this life forever, and maybe in some strange way you always have. And so you lie back down now, not as a stranger, not as an orphan of time, but as someone who belonged. The fire beside you softens to a low glow, licking the stone edges of its hearth. Somewhere across the cave, Clack mumbles in his sleep, probably chasing elk in his dreams. You let your eyes drift upward toward the cave ceiling, mottled with soot and time. You know every bump, every shadow. You've memorized them like constellations, and tonight they seem to move with your breath. The wind outside hums low, brushing the cave entrance like a lullaby. You pull your fur tighter around your shoulders. It smells of smoked bark and animal oil. But now to you, that means home. In this world, nothing was easy, but everything mattered. And perhaps that's what they gave you most. Not just the strength to survive, but the instinct to care, to stay close, to listen to silence, to find meaning, not in what is said, but in what is shared. The cave grows quieter still. Even your heartbeat begins to sync with the low rhythm of the clan's breath. One by one, the flickers of fire become embers. One by one, the sounds become whispers, and eventually, even those disappear. Now, let the Ice Age hold you gently. Let the wind sing its ancient song. And let sleep take you one dream at a time, back through the snow, the fire, the silence, home.